Yo, we need to talk about something right now. We got many big things on deck, actually. But here with me today is somebody who I've known for I don't even know how long it is, but it's a long time. I mean, it's like forever. It's eternity. Uh, but we're sitting here back at school, back at Michigan State, and my guest is on the West Coast. We'll get into that in a second. Difference in time zone, difference in experiences, non-athlete versus athlete. But that's what we're trying to figure out, folks, and what we're going to dive deeper into on Confluence of Worlds with Bryan Rector. And folks, let me tell you something. Today we're starting season 2, which adds no additional pressure, none. It's just going to be good. We're going to be smooth with it, and we're going to figure it out. And we're going to go, as we said, we touched on the different prongs of faith. We touched on sport. We touched on community outreach and engagement. We touched on volunteering, NIL, all of these different opportunities that you have to develop your platform and to make a difference and to live for your purpose that's deeper than the sport that you play. And that's where we were through our first 9-ish episodes in the opening semester. And that's exactly where we're going. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my just amazing friends. I mean, for once again, ages. We worked together in high school for too many things with Wilsonville Broadcast Network. And she has now played and had a couple different experiences. Northern Colorado playing basketball, as well as Seattle Pacific. So Emilia Bishop, thank you for joining the show. And also thank you for being willing to jump on with me and to share your story. I think everybody's going to love it. We've been talking off camera about
for an hour,
widely ranging for literally an hour before we've gotten going. But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen to you introducing yourself, what you're about, and a little bit of your backstory, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I am, like Bryan said, from Wilsonville, born and raised. Bryan and I have been friends. I mean, we went to middle school together. I think we went to different elementary schools, but so we've known each other forever, literally. I think we did Skyhawks together.
Yes, we did.
We were like 5. Like that's how long, guys. Like that is how long we've known each other. Like this is kind of full circle moment. So yeah, I did broadcasting. I played basketball my whole life and have just kind of, I don't know, like had a very, I don't want to say different experience because I think everyone's experience is different in college, but like I've had a pretty interesting time in college, very unexpected, and I think have very much learned that life is unexpected. A little bit about my background. So I was raised in a family that I want to say we were quite like Christian, but we were definitely like had those morals and values. And my parents really just let my siblings and I decide what we wanted and what we believed in. So I have an older brother who is 25 and he's actually Muslim, which I think is really like cool. And we get to confer like our different beliefs and just like growing up, learning how to respect other people. And then my older sister is 23, 24, I think. And she is literally like my favorite person in the whole world. And I always want to just be like her. And so she started going to a church back home. And so I followed her like any dutiful little sister does. And got involved in everything she did. And I was able to go on a mission trip to Mexico my freshman year. And then I got baptized after that. Because, you know, I think in the US and growing up in a pretty affluent suburb, we kind of lose the meaning behind family and become very materialistic. And just seeing those people with a 1-bedroom house just crying over something a bunch of high school kids did for them was just so moving and so powerful, and really changed my outlook on a lot of like what Christianity is and what being a follower of Jesus is. And so then I ended up getting baptized and have never regretted it at all. and I joined FCA and got to see it going from 6 people my freshman year in the morning to I think there's over like 200 people going now, which is just insane. Um, and just always trying to be as involved as I could. But it's hard, obviously, for athletes doing that because we have a lot of other things to go to. So I couldn't really go to church on Sundays, so I always made a point to go to youth group on Wednesdays. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my faith journey before college.
Mm.
Long story short.
No,
But
no, absolutely. And I think thank you first off for sharing and giving the background of that. But what I'm like so curious to know is within your journey, was there any like event that you would point at and say that was the catalyst and that's where I grew the most? Or did it kind of happen as a progression? What would you say about that, the growth and development?
I mean, I think my freshman year of college was kind of the first time that I was like, oh, like my faith is mine. Like it is what I want it to be, and I can be as close to Jesus and God as I want to be. And kind of finally learning how to connect with it in a way that doesn't it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Um, and I think too, kind of developing my own thought process of I think there's a lot of times that the church can take things and stories and um, turn them kind of evil in a
Mm,
way. And so I think it's really important to develop our own thought process on kind of the more political things and what we think
sure,
versus
sure,
what
sure.
the church is trying to tell us and what we really feel like our interpretation of God's word is when we read the Bible. And so, just kind of reading the Bible and my freshman year, like I had kind of, I don't want to say everything taken from me, but I had a big part of my identity taken because I had never hated basketball before in my life. And I never wanted to walk away as much as I did after my freshman year. But um, I think it was kind of God finally showing me like a little bit more what my purpose is, um, and developing that understanding of how to kind of listen and just trust in what He was giving to me, um, and teaching me. And I know that I will never fully understand what He has taught me through a lot of the nights that I spent, crying in my bed over the pain that I was in. But it's still a beautiful thing I think it's a beautiful thing to struggle and still be able to come back out and be like, no, I'm still succeeding. So yeah,
Mm,
probably my freshman year was the biggest like going into my adult life. And I think COVID too, like
sure.
being away from everything and still choosing to go to youth group and be around people and finding people that were also on their own journey but wanting to do it together, I
Mm,
think was a really big thing.
yes, yes, absolutely. And I think, that's a really important detail to know about, I think, your story and somewhere I want to go is the difference between the love that you had for the sport, getting to college, and then what happened at Northern Colorado is what happened, right? I mean, that's, said and done. But then the appreciation for it has seemingly come back, right? And,
Yeah.
you've found ways to kind of resurface the joy and the freedom of all of it and in the work. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing is like what were some of the things, if you even can touch on it, that happened at Northern Colorado that led to this kind of downturn and falling out of love and however you
Yeah.
want to describe that negative change.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of easy just like start at the beginning. So, my senior year obviously was COVID. Like started junior year, got the state championship taken away from us the year that we were gonna win. We were gonna win, guys. Trust me, like that was our year. Going into the semifinal game against our arch rival at woke up at 8 a.m. to get ready for our game. At noon, we were back on the road home. Um, Heartbreaking, fully. And so just kind of losing that. And then over COVID, I was very fortunate and probably a little bit stupid because I was traveling to Arizona every weekend to keep playing,
Mm,
and I got some accolades, but I committed to Northern Colorado the summer of my junior year and loved the coach. I was like, this is a woman I want to learn from. She's a great person. She's someone that I'll turn into a mentor. Like, this is a relationship that I want to have after. And that's always kind of been what basketball was to me, was it's all so relational for me. And the
mm,
people are what make it so beautiful, I think. That so many people from so many different backgrounds can come together and share a common goal of just wanting to succeed and win and work their butts off. But then in, I think it was April or May of my senior year, I was at a track meet and I had just thrown my PR in shot put and got a call from the people at Northern Colorado. And like that was the first time I'd ever like people say like feeling like you got punched in the gut by
mm.
news.
Yeah.
And they told me that the coach was basically forced to resign because of some stuff that happened on the team. And I don't really know, so I'm not going to really go into that part. But I was so distraught. Like, I didn't know what to think. I was so scared. I was like, what am I going to do? And I had already like been planning to go like a month late to school because I wanted to finish out my basketball season, which had got pushed to the summer. I was like, I'm finishing out my senior year, whatever. And then I got a call from like 2 weeks later from the new coach. Um, and I was like, yeah, I'm still gonna go. I'm still like, I've made a commitment. I'm gonna see it through. Like, this is still where I think God is leading me to be. Um, and the second day I got there, I it was my first day of practice, and one of the girls that I was really excited to play with looked at me and said, just so you know, we don't gossip on this team. And if you're going to do that, everyone's going to know. And so that was kind of the first, like, that was my welcome to college moment. Your teammates don't actually care about you. You're just another face. And that's kind of what most of the year was kind of just feeling like nobody really cared if I showed up to practice or not. Um, and learning later that a lot of my teammates didn't like me solely based on the fact that I came in late and I was a freshman.
Mm,
Um, and so I just really struggled with my identity, like not being able to really connect with anybody on the team. And I did have people on the team, like don't like I did. I had a couple of really great teammates that took me under the wing and just let me cry to them a lot. I'm very pro crying. It helps your eyelashes grow. But yeah, it was just really hard because I went from playing with people since I was in fifth grade to not knowing anyone. A lot of my friends were off the team, on other like on the volleyball team, like my best friend ever.
mm.
And just kind of being, I mean, 20 hours by car away from
Yeah.
my family. I couldn't see them. It was cold. I pretty much lived alone. It was dark. I got food poisoning for the first time, and then 2 weeks later I got sick, and then 2 weeks after that, my grandfather passed unexpectedly, and that was kind of the first time I ever like felt like people actually cared. And I learned that there is um, like a emergency budget for schools. Like if a player has a family issue or something happened, they're able to send you home immediately. And so my coach let me go home and just be with family, and I almost didn't go back because I was like, what is there for me there? But I
Mm,
was like, I can't quit because that's
mm,
always kind of been who I am. Like I'm gonna see my commitment through. And I had made that commitment. And so I got back, and I think when I got back, like I'd never felt loneliness the same way before. And at the time, like I really wasn't going to church. I wasn't pursuing a relationship with God. Like I was really trying to do it alone. And so I cried a lot, and it was just horrible. And thankfully, like a week after I lost my grandfather, who was one of the biggest reasons I like kept playing basketball. And like I can still hear his voice when I shoot the ball to get the ball higher up on the glass. And um, so like losing him, like there was a lot of tears like during national anthems and everything. So I just think of him.
mm,
And then got through. uh, Christmas break, and then on the first of the year that year, I got COVID. So then I was really alone because I had to go into quarantine. And so finally made it through that. But then I made it through the season. I redshirted, and it just really didn't feel like anybody cared if I was there or not. And I kind of stopped caring if I was there or not anyway, too. Like kind of praying like I got injured or something happened, and I was dealing with really bad anxiety, and I was getting really sick and couldn't hold food down, and like it was really, really dark. Um, and then after break, I got back, and I am really thankful for my coaches. Like they weren't the great. I didn't really connect with them. I didn't know them. I wasn't one of the girls that had stayed, so I wasn't connected to the group, to the six girls that was coming from the old team. I wasn't really connected to the eight girls they brought in. Like I was in a weird like niche all by myself where I didn't really fit into either groups. Didn't
Sure.
really know the coaches. Didn't get recruited. I was just kind of there. And they just told me, like, we think you're a great person, you're a great teammate, we appreciate you, but you just don't fit into you're just not going to fit into our system. And I mean, to me, it's like, well, if you're not going to teach me the system, and if you don't, not, I guess, don't really care if I'm here or not, like, I don't want to be here.
Sure.
And then and at that time, like, I was finally kind of getting back into um, FCA and going to church and everything. And I the first this and then so I left the meeting with them that day, and first time I've like ever truly felt like God's presence being like, I'm here. I was like, what am I gonna do? So I left the meeting with them, and I was just like, tears. I was trying to call everybody and just figure out what, like talking to my parents, figuring it out. And I'm very much like, I need 3 days to make a decision, to kind of like, first day is to process, second day is to kind of make the decision, third day is to sit in that decision and then tell it. And so the first day after I walked out of their office, I went to my happy place, which is Dutch Bros, which if you live on the West Coast, you know what that is. So I went to Dutch Bros, and then I went to Winchell's Donuts because I was like, I deserve a treat. And the sticker of the month that month was peace of mind. And then as after I got my Dutch and my lunch and everything, I went on the Bible app because like, hey, I just need to get in the Word of God. And the Bible verse of the day was Jeremiah 29:11, which is like now my verse. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. For when you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart." And that was kind of like, okay, like I'm gonna be okay. Like transferring is obviously the best option here. There's nothing for me here. Yeah, I have friends, but if they're really my friends, they're not going anywhere. And so I went in 3 days later to my coach's office, and they walked me to the compliance office, and I signed the papers, and I entered the transfer portal that day. Um, and that kind of ended my journey at Northern Colorado. And I'm kind of glad that it was the first time that I was really like, this is a decision that nobody can make for me. Like this is between me and God. He needs to lead my steps now. So yeah, that's the long, kind of really long-winded story of what happened. And but yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the portal is something that people look at and kind of, it's like fairy dust to a lot of people. It's like, kind of this odd thing that has adapted and changed and evolved.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, is like, because it's so true to you to stay loyal and committed and trying to make that work. And as it's clear, and as you had said, that you did attempt to make it work. Like you stuck
Yeah.
out the you kept showing up, trying to connect, and then when it got to the point where for you internally, it was like, okay, I've got to go. What was that process like of getting through the portal, communicating with other
Mhm.
schools? I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, just for people
Yeah.
who may not have heard about anyone who's endured that unknown.
Yeah, I mean the transfer portal, like I seriously say, like it kind of saved my life. Like I talked to a lot of my old teammates, and I think if I had stayed, I don't know what would have happened. Like I got to the point where I didn't want to see a basketball. I didn't want to touch my shoes. I wanted nothing to do with the sport. And I actually, obviously, like the recruiting process the first time was kind of cut short because of the what happened with COVID, and Northern Colorado was the only place that I got to visit. And like again, if anybody's listening to this, like I am so thankful for everyone there, and I have forgiven everyone. And like obviously there, like I think people did what was right for the team, and I think I did what was right for me. And like I have a lot of appreciation for the coaches and the other players because it just taught me a lot of just gratitude and a lot about myself. But with the transfer portal and the transfer process, pretty much everyone that like I seriously considered, I had a relationship in some form with before. So like one of the schools that was like number one, and I was waiting for them to give me an offer, and then somebody else committed was Loyola Marymount, where Charity Elliott coached, and she is now at Point Loma. And Point Loma was the first school that ever recruited me ever. Like sophomore year of high school, when D2s could finally start recruiting, Point Loma was the only one of the only schools that I got to visit, whatever. But I just didn't want to go so far from home again. And then the other school that I was looking at was Westmont in Santa Barbara. And the assistant coach there was also one of the assistant coaches that recruited me to Northern Colorado.
Mm.
And so I really was like considering them too. And I went on a visit, and I did really enjoy it. But I was like, this just isn't the place for me either. Like
Yeah.
when you know, you know. And so then with Seattle Pacific, where I'm at now, two of the girls that were on the team were my teammates in club. So I had a relationship with them too. And there is just something about when I got to campus and I was walking alone that I could just see myself here, and I could see myself doing well and thriving and learning a lot about myself. And like I felt God being like, yeah, this is the right place. But you have to change your expectations. Like you cannot expect the relationships to be what you want. You can't dream about this. You can't like make what I'm gonna make this happen, and you can't. You have no control, which sucks. Like I'm pretty control, like not controlling of people, but like of myself. I have a lot of control. I like to have control.
Yeah.
Things should be organized. Like that's just kind of how I am with my life. And the coach the coaches there here are just like I wanted people that really truly cared. And I didn't want to be a number. I didn't want to be anything. I didn't want any lies. I didn't want a coach tell me like, yeah, you're going to come in and play, because I had already experienced that lie and I didn't want to again.
Mm.
And the coaches up front were like, yeah, you're not going to play your first year here, and you have to earn your time. You're going to be a role player for the next 2-3 years. And then your senior year, we can rediscuss. And I was like, okay, like it's going to suck. It's going to be hard, but I can accept that. Like I have enough humility to be like, okay, like sometimes there's things bigger than my stat line. Um, and one day that's going to go away, and I'd rather be remembered for something else other than my performances on the court, I guess. And so I went to Seattle Pacific on a visit, and then the next day I went to Westmont. And then when I left Westmont, I just felt the difference between each place, and I was like, I want to go to SPU. Like there was just something here that I was like, this is right for me. And I'm very much a proponent of you call back the coaches that you're saying no to, and
Yeah.
coaches have heard so many no's, and it's okay because it's your journey. And so through the recruiting process, I think I had a lot more confidence and I had a lot more understanding of what I wanted and what I needed, and a much longer pros and cons list. Um, and like I don't regret my decision. I think there's definitely days still that are hard. And this year has still also been like college basketball is not easy. College sports suck. Like as much as I love it now, like But I think the biggest thing too for me is over the summer between leaving Northern Colorado and coming to Seattle, I got like a 4 month summer. So it was so long, but I
Mm,
was able to do like a lot of coaching and I got to do an FCA camp and just see the impact that I could have on younger athletes through kind of giving back what was given to me and and teaching the lessons in a much better way than I was taught them. And so like I really fell in love with just what basketball can do for kids and
mm,
what it's done for me. And I think instead of a love for performance, I just created a gratitude for just the feeling of running up and down the court and having the ball in my hands. And at the end of the day, like sometimes that's enough to keep me coming back, or the loyalty I have to my team to be like, we may not talk every day. We may leave this school and I may never see you again, but while I'm here, like I'm your biggest cheerleader.
mm.
Um, and like I think I'm still working through a lot of kind of the stuff that happened at Northern Colorado, but I am very grateful that my coaches are there with me, like helping me through the bad days where I kind of get back in a bad mental state.
Sure.
So, because I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And I think that's something that is an incredible message to go along with what you had just been sharing about the negative piece to it and the aspects that take time to heal from when you're in that situation. I'm tremendously inspired by where you went to get over some of that, which is giving back, which is coaching the youth, which is, being in the community. And so
Mhm.
that's the direction that I really want to go. Is like, as we had said earlier at the top of the show, been a part of the same hometown, went together in school, have done a lot of things, together or in vicinity, and kind of been able to see it, which I say because one thing that I've always known is that your family is one that has a very high involvement in the community and is
Yeah.
is constantly doing things. So I was wondering, is like, where did that come from, and how did they allow you to start becoming that, of running camps, of
Mm.
being in, pickup games, teaching younger girls, younger players? Like, I
Yeah.
want to know what the root of that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of how my family's always been. I don't know. Like, I don't know where it comes from originally. Like, my mom's been the team doctor for the high school for almost 30 years. My dad is the volunteer MC for like a ton of auctions.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I started coaching at 15. That was like my first job,
yeah.
because I met Jordan Kent, who um very strong Christian. He was a three-sport athlete at Oregon, like super cool guy. So I got to know him and his wife, and like they worked for them for a really long time, and that kind of started it. And at that point, I was like, they were 6 to 12-year-olds, so they were kind of nightmares, and it was like herding cats. But just seeing like a kid never pick up a ball to like understanding a little bit. And I think too, like sports is just such a good outlet for
Mm,
energy and emotion. And it's such a good like social thing too, whether people take it seriously or not. Like it teaches you a lot. And I think I've been really blessed to have some really great coaches, all with different coaching styles. But like I started playing competitively, I think in fifth grade was my first club season.
mm,
And I loved the travel and everything. And I think a lot of it for me, where like the desire to give back comes from, is I don't really know who I would be without sports. And like I was blessed from a really young age. Like I've been 6 foot. Like I think I hit 6 foot in seventh grade and 6'2" freshman year of high school. So it was like there wasn't much else for me to do other than sports to kind of get things out. Like I tried dance, I tried instruments. There's just something different about having a ball in my hand or at my feet, when I played soccer or running around the track, that just like brought a peace. And I think if I can give that to other kids, like that's really special. Um, and then as I kind of started coaching more like elite kids, just realizing like there's not a lot of opportunities. Like at least when I was growing up, like there was opportunities obviously, but like women's basketball to men's basketball is very behind. The last couple of years have obviously like with Cameron Brink and Sedona and Sabrina and Paige Beckers and
It
Kaylin Clark,
was.
like there has been
Yeah.
so much forward movement
Yeah.
in women's basketball and in women's sports. And it's like to be like, I like Cameron Brink, like we used to play pickup together. She probably doesn't remember me, but I remember in eighth grade getting to shoot a three over her head. Like that's like a cool thing for me. Or like watching Haley Van Lith play
Yeah.
against with Kashmir again and killing LaSalle. Like I remember that. And it's always like different memories. Or like watching Kelsey Plum play at Portland and being like, oh my gosh, like, and meeting, like, I got at that game, Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe were there. So it's like getting to meet athletes and just seeing all that and like how much they give back and being like, there's so much more that can be done. Um, and one, coaching does that. But like this last summer, one of my old high school teammates who Kira was great, love her, shout out. But she and I started just runs for college girls at my high school because my aunt is one of the like activities directors and the new AD at our school, his daughter also plays college ball. So we were able to kind of get some gym time and just get in. And we had, I think we would have 10 to 15 girls a week. And there's just not those opportunities. Like, yeah, you can go play with the guys, but guys can be pretty disrespectful or like not take you seriously as a girl. And that's fine. Like, it's just the matter of fact. Like, they take me seriously at the church because they like know that I'll mess them up. But like, Brian knows he tried to guard me. Didn't
Okay.
work out.
Okay.
But there's not a lot of opportunities for girls to just go get runs, and that's one of the best ways I think as you get older to just develop your skill is just playing.
Mm.
And that's what actually got me through leaving Northern Colorado is I just started going to pickup once a week and was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun to just like run up and down the court, not even touch the ball, but just like be in that mindset of like, oh, I just love competing. And so then to give back, it's like I think it's just a gratitude thing more than anything. Like
Mm.
at the end of the day, is I've been given a lot and I want to give a lot back. And I don't want anyone to have to kind of go through the same that I did. I think it's important to have difficulty. I don't think anybody should just have an easy way out, but I just see the way it's like transformed people. And I've also seen the way that it's hurt people. And I don't want that for other people. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah.
And no, I love what you said. In fact, what I definitely am going to do is cut that clip right there and be posting that on social media when we go there because that was, I think, the most central thing that you've said today, among obviously other things. You're only being one of them. But I say that because in this day and age, right, with the personal branding stuff and the NIL and the dollars and the external influences and the materialistic things, what you've kept humble in and rooted in is your identity in Christ and the idea that giving back may or may not prepare your heart to receive, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's something that's tremendously important. But I say all of that and I commend you for it because I want to hear what your thoughts are on where college sports has gone. You touched on a little bit of the higher viewership and
Hmm.
the better play and the more equivalent things that are starting to happen between the men's and women's game. But I was wondering, what do you think as a whole with all the money that's in it, all the brand deals, all the opportunities that you have to be marketable? What's your take on that? And also, kind of as a second part, is like, what would your advice be to stay rooted and to keep giving back and to be level-headed amongst all of that external environment craziness stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super like I haven't done a lot with NIL, I'll be really honest. It's definitely harder at the lower levels to kind of get attached, and for a lot of things, like you have to pay for things before you can get any money. Like this is actually a brand that I like kind of started doing something with, but like never really went anywhere because I just couldn't keep up with paying for stuff.
Sure.
Because it's expensive. Like there is like the top 1%, like athletes in college, like we are 1% of the world. And then you have a 1% of that 1% that is the high like D1, like they're getting all the brand deals, everything. But the time that it takes, I think I watched Sedona Prince do a day in the life, and she wakes up at like 5 a.m., does stuff for her brand, goes to practice, eats, does another thing for her brand, goes to class. Like it's a becomes a full-time job. And college sports are already a full-time job. So it's like for NIL, like it takes a lot to do that. And that's just
Yeah.
something like I haven't quite adventured into. It's something I would like to do, but I just haven't kind of put the time aside to put that work in.
Hmm.
Um, but I think what's crazy is like there's some like obviously I only know mostly about the women's basketball. I know there's some women that have actually like deferred going into the draft because they make more money in college than they would as a WNBA player.
Hmm.
And that's hopefully going to change soon. Like I really want women's sports to become as dominant as men. But if you think like 20 years ago, they were the WNBA, like they weren't going to keep it around. Like it took investment from the NBA to make it anything. And so it's like we still need men's sports to help women, but we need women pushing. And I also think the men's and women's games, like if you watch, they are actually pretty much two different sports in the way they're played.
Hmm.
Like women tend to be a lot more technical the older they get, just because the athleticism isn't always, it's not the same. Like men and women's athleticism, like it's not the same, like just based on biology. Um, which is fine, but women tend to, I think at least, be a little bit more, a little smarter with things and a lot more technical.
Hmm.
But because like we can't, it's a lot harder to dunk, it's a lot harder to be really fast. Our bodies are all shaped so different than the men. But I think men's sports is like I don't love watching the NBA because I kind of think it's a little bit of showboating, and that's just my opinion. But like I like when watching men's college basketball. Like I think it's really fun because the guys are just so athletic, and you can see like learning happening as it goes, and nobody's mastered anything. I think when you get to pro levels, there is a little bit more like mastery of the sport, which is also a really beautiful thing. But um, I think with the next couple of years, like women's basketball is it's on the come up, like for sure. Um, but it has a long way to go too. Like last night, my team had a doubleheader with the guys, and it was an away game, but we had like maybe 100 people in the stands, and the guys had like four something. Like there's still like we just don't get the fans at the women's level, which I get. And so like realistically, like it's gonna take a lot more, and it's gonna take a lot more investment. But I think with a lot of players um that are showing like women, like we got it. Like our sport is we're legit. We put the same amount of hours and the same amount of work in. We deserve the viewership, and at the end of the day, like it's just kind of people's opinions. Like some people like watching women's sports, some people watch it just to hate on it, and those are the people that I think are in the wrong more than anything.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, they're still viewers. They're still adding to the viewer count, even if they're doing it just to be mean about it. But
Hmm.
any comment, any publicity is a good publicity, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a interesting line to walk, because you're right. I mean, I'm really glad you said that because it's hard to shy away from the fact that there are people there who exist just to make a negative comment or to
Yeah,
draw support for their idea or opinion that is, adverse against
yeah,
the growth and development of women's sports. And in that, at least in that scenario, it's
yeah.
absolutely true. I mean, look at any major social media account, and you see anytime
Hate
it's like
comments.
ESPNW or something of that nature, you look and scroll through the commentary, and you're sitting there going, "What is happening?" I
Yeah,
mean, like,
yeah,
why are these people here?
yeah.
You
Why do they care so much about people that don't really care about them?
right, right,
That's the harsh truth, but
yeah, yeah, for sure. That's crazy. That's crazy. But no, I do love what you had to say about the difference between the two games, and I think that's like the similarity is more important to highlight, and fortunately, being highlighted at a higher level. But
hmm
I was curious, like, and then we have a couple other places to go, and then we'll be on the way out of here because I know you got to go shopping and got to take care of business. But
Yeah, I got a meal prep.
yeah, for real, life of an athlete, right there,
Life
meal
as
prep.
an athlete.
But
No, my favorite Christmas present, my
yeah,
parents got me yum sauce from
did they
Cafe
really?
Yum. I'm so excited. Oh, so
Yeah,
excited.
for that rice and that chicken stuff, that's good.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
But what what would you say today that your identity as a human being is rooted in?
I'm still not super sure. I mean, there's definitely like God is big, but I'm not someone that, unless somebody asks, I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay,
And I think maybe that's just living like in the Pacific Northwest. Like there is kind of a spiritual dark spot a little bit up here.
sure.
And you just kind of can't really talk about it. And I do have a lot of fear. I can't take the hate comments very well. And I think that's kind of what keeps me from being really public. And it's something I am working towards.
I see.
Um, but I think Christ is one of them. I think something else is just like I I love to give and I love to help people. And I also think I've learned that I have some wisdom to give,
Mm,
but I'm still learning my worth. And so I can't really say I know what my identity is yet because I'm still learning it. One of my words for the year is truth, and it's finding my own truth and finding the truth that God's trying to teach me and everything. So I really don't. I wouldn't say I have an identity yet,
okay.
but I'm working on it, and I
Yeah.
think that's okay. I think it's okay not to know. That's one thing
Yeah.
too that it's like I don't have control over that, and that's okay. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. It's okay to cry on your floor.
Yeah. So, well, certainly. I mean, we're out here snickering about that, but you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. That's not to discredit the fact that that's necessary. Uh, Many times, right? I mean, we're all trying to handle something, handle
hmm
business, be working towards the end goal. But actually, that brings me to something I'm curious about. Is like, okay, we're in our third year now, and after you have moved schools and started to redefine and reassess, like, what are your goals that you have that are in the sport or as you're moving forward before the end of your career?
I have no idea.
Hmm,
I am actually working on that as well because
okay,
I think for me at least, a lot of those goals have actually caused more harm than good because if I don't get 10 points a game, I failed.
sure.
And so right now, I'm really just working on just being stable. My goal this year is to learn how to be consistent and confident and just understand my role because I'm not a starter. I hopefully will be by my fifth year. Um, I just want to give to my team what I can and learn what that looks like each day. Um, and I think I can see the end, and I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what my goals are. I'm kind of just sitting in the fact that like as long as I show up every day and I work hard and I give to everybody else, like by that fifth grader who walked into practice, I don't even know how many years ago, like she would be proud of who I am. And I think that's my goal is to make myself 20 years ago and in 20 years, like I want to be proud of who I
Mm.
was right now. And I think college sports is such a small part of our lives. That I don't think point total, I don't think the numbers will fade, but like I want to have good memories and a good love for and an appreciation for everything. So I feel like it's probably very like that's so anti sports almost. Like we're taught to have goals, and I don't have any because I don't want to put that pressure on myself. I'd rather just enjoy it.
Yeah, let
Mm,
me ask you something, and this is more of a question, or a less like question based directed at you and what you've done in your experience. But I was wondering if you've heard of Ultimate Training Camp. Do you know
no.
what it is? Okay, okay. So Ultimate Training Camp is through AIA, Athletes in Action, and it's I think a lot of what you were just saying about the numbers fading
Yeah.
and um, about your legacy sort of as an athlete being trivial
Yeah.
compared to what your legacy is as a person and as a
Yeah.
vessel for spreading the gospel and living similarly to Christ.
Hmm.
uh, that's a serious pillar for what they do, and so they essentially, like, we've heard about it on a few different Confluence shows before. They pick a couple different places to have camp each year, and they
Hmm.
bring people out there, and they kind of do this. There are days of teaching in the Word
Yeah.
and in how to deal with things as an athlete from a Christ centered
Yeah.
perspective. But then they do a physical competition too, where it's like you're lining up against people and doing this like ropes course and like this whole entire physicality thing to be shown that it's not the result that matters, right? It's
Yeah.
about it's about the relationship. It's about so really breaking down those boundaries. So I was curious if you had heard because that
No.
to me sounded a lot like what you were saying and have throughout the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at going abroad this summer, so that might have to be one of the programs I look at.
Okay,
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
absolutely. When we jump off here, I'll share that with you for
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be
Um,
super cool.
yeah, UTC is what that's called. But
Yeah.
uh, let me ask you something because I know we're about to wrap up here and we got things to do, people to see. What are some of the? I know you mentioned Jeremiah 29,
Yeah.
uh, but what are some verses, if you have another on hand, that you're inspired by, interested in, that kind of drive you? If
Yeah.
you have, I would love to hear.
I actually have two more. Um, the first one is okay, I'm like they're both from John,
Okay.
and so I might mix them up. But the first one is John 1:5. And it says, light can always be found in the darkness because the darkness cannot overcome it. And so that was really big my freshman year. And then the other one is First John 4:18, which says perfect love casts out fear. And then I actually have a book that I am going through with my mentor right now, which I think is really important. Everybody should get a mentor, and it is The Bait of Satan by John
Mm,
Bevere. And this book makes it you gotta think like it goes. It's a deep thing, and it talks a lot about the pain of offense, and it's helping me work through a lot of the offense that I felt and a lot of the anger that I have, and has I think kind of made me just more one thankful and just forgiving, and um, taught me more of like what it looks like to kind of lead a life of Christ, but not have to lead it out loud. Like I don't need to. I probably should a little bit better, like scream from the rooftops, like Jesus is my Lord and Savior. But I don't like that's not really who I am. I'd rather talk to people about what they think than convince them of what I think. And
Hmm.
um, I think this book for me has just really opened my eyes to a lot of the things that I've been holding back from God and is keeping me from Him. Um, and so yeah, I've been a lot more into reading. Sorry, somebody just tried to call me. I've gotten a lot more into reading and just I need to read my Bible more. But
Hmm.
yeah. But yeah, so those are the things right now that I'm doing to kind of this is what I'm doing right now, kind of refine God. Because it's
Yeah.
hard to go to church. It's hard to go to church and like wake up and go alone. But I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah,
I'm
that
working
was
on it.
me today. University Reformed Church. My man Sam. I drove over onto campus to get him from one of the halls and
Yeah.
called a few times. No answer. I get over to the church for being seated and getting ready, and I get a text back. Hey man, I overslept. And I went,
Mm,
oh, geez, that's the time change because he's a West Coast
yeah.
guy just like we are.
Yeah.
But and he just came back in, and we're all doing our own thing. But
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And
I gave myself grace this morning to sleep
okay,
in, and I ended up sleeping in until like 11.
yeah,
But I've been trying. And you get it. Like it's hard having like going to Grace Chapel back home. Like it's such a good church, and I love it
yeah.
so much. And so it's like
Shout
having
out
such a good
Wash
home church.
and Emma
I
Weaver. Need that.
Yeah, I compare everything to Grace, which is
Yeah,
horrible because comparison is the thief of joy.
there it is.
Um, but like, so I'm working on it, and I'm actually hoping in a couple years to grad assist somewhere down south and maybe experience what it looks like being a Christian there.
Wow.
So just in different parts of the country. Like it's been really interesting going from a public school in Colorado to a private school in Seattle and just
Yeah,
how different Christianity is viewed by the student bodies. So
yeah. Like this is just for my own learning and understanding, but something that I had actually highlighted as wanting to talk to you about is if you kind of had to break it down, what would you say are the differences between what its approach like at your two schools that you've been a part of?
well, the more west you go, the less I like I don't want to like say a broad statement by any means because this is like just what I've experienced. But I felt like in Colorado, it was a lot more common for people to talk about their faith and it was a lot more accepted and there was a lot less judgment about it. Obviously going to a public school, like our coaches couldn't be as open about it, but if you approached them about the topic, they could. Um, and so like there was a lot more faith on my team there than there is now. And like I think which is totally fine. Like everybody's on their own journey. I'm not gonna force anyone to believe what I believe, but it's been really interesting coming to Seattle and just how almost opposed to religion some of my teammates are. Like I feel so like I won't talk about it. Like they know I am because I'm like this is who I am. Like you don't try to change me, I'm not going to try to change you.
Sure.
I feel no need to be like I don't know, is evangelical the word? Like I don't feel the need to like
Yeah.
push it on you, but don't tell me I'm wrong and I won't tell you you're wrong. It's not my place to judge by any means, but going to a private school, I can have so much more conversation with my coaches about it, which I really appreciate. And my mentor, who I'm actually going through the Bait of Satan with, was one of my coaches
Oh,
last
okay.
year. And then because of just some political, not political stuff, but just like some different reasoning, she had to step down from coaching, but she still works at the school.
Okay.
Um, and so it's just been really cool to kind of experience like when I went into the recruiting process the first time, my senior, like when I was in high school, I didn't want to go to a Christian school, but I wanted to have a coach who was Christian,
Hmm.
not realizing that that doesn't work. Like you can't have it both ways,
Hmm.
honestly. Because at a public school, they're not really allowed to talk about it because of the separation of church and state, which I think gets blurred sometimes. And I don't like it. I think sometimes the church has too much power over the state, and I think the state tries to have too much control over the church sometimes. And I think
Mm.
that's more Satan coming in. But going to a public school or going to a private school, I knew I wanted to go to a school where religion was part of it,
Okay.
not realizing, but I didn't really think about location during that. And so it's hard in Seattle a little bit to find a church and like kind of find people that are on any sort of faith journey. But I think it just makes me appreciate like the people that I am around me and are open to talking about it, whether they are religious or not. Like most of my best friends are not. They don't, and I think to I have the power to change a lot of people's opinions on what Christianity is because I don't think I represent myself as someone that's going to be like, you're going to hell if you don't believe in God.
Sure.
Like, no, I don't fully think that. I mean, I think there is like, you do have to have a belief, you have to choose to have a relationship. But if you don't believe in God or in hell, then I don't know where you're going to go. But I can live my life with in the pursuit of I want to go to heaven, I want to live with my heavenly Father when I die, like, and I can treat you with respect and love and no judgment because at the end of the day, it's not my place to judge you. And I think that especially like with a lot of the politics today, like love is love, and the more of that we have, the easier life gets. And I don't approach people with a tough exterior. Like I'm gonna let you hurt me if that's what you need to do, but I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna give it to God and it's gonna be fine.
Mm.
So I think that's been one thing too that I've learned is like hurt people, but
Okay.
I'm not one of those people. So yeah.
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I think, you know what? That's a fantastic spot to kind of say, okay, maybe it's time for episode 2. And hey, uh, but seriously, I've so appreciated you coming on and being
Of
a part of
course.
this thing. I know that from the beginning, you and I were working on this thing together, and I want
Mhm.
that to be the trend
On the
now.
Lord's court, represent.
Yeah, seriously, we need to figure out a way to integrate you into it and to integrate your ideas and attitudes. And I've been so fortunate that we've been able to break them down
Yeah.
and be sitting here just riffing and catching up. So
Yeah.
I
No,
really
I just want you to know, like, I'm so proud of you for doing this. Like, I seriously think it's amazing. And, like, I'm glad you didn't let me taking a step back stop you.
mm,
And I just, like, I have a lot, I'm so proud of you and I'm cheering for you.
thank
So,
you. You know what? I think like as soon as we had that conversation about this is what it's going to look like, with being in hoops versus me having the opportunity to do it at full,
yeah,
steam right now. It made sense to go that route. But then right now is kind of to me signifying that it makes sense to get back together and start to,
yeah,
figure out how to make that work. So.
yeah.
But before we jump off here, I want to ask one last thing: is do you have anybody that you want to shout out? Anybody that you want to mention? Anybody for me to tag, maybe, and
Mm.
try and get this thing going? When you mentioned the part about Coach Kent, I started to think, oh, okay,
He's amazing.
maybe I could clip him in there. But let me know. What do you think about
Yeah. I mean, I think Kira would be great. She's on a really great journey. Sydney is great journey. I think if you want to go to someone who's been through college sports and is trying to make it at the to potentially the next level, Sierra would be
that?
great. Um, I mean, shout out to my coaches, like kind of saved my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think another person that would be really cool is Pastor Mike Catlock.
Oh, yes.
He'd be really cool to talk to. Like he part of the reason I love him as a pastor is because he talks about sports and he relates a lot of things to sports
Sure.
in his teachings. And um I can definitely get you some more names of people that I've worked with over the last couple years. And I'm hoping to do an FCA camp this summer.
Okay.
Another person that would be really cool is Robbie. Can't remember his last name, but he is our volunteer assistant coach, and he is one of the leaders for FCA and AIA in the Seattle area.
Oh, wow.
So in Seattle, one thing that we do that's really cool is we do a cross campus. So we have Seattle Pacific, UW, Northwest, Evergreen, Seattle U, and a couple of other schools that are in the
Wow.
area. We all do um, youth group or young adult FCA AIA group together.
Yeah.
Um, and depending on how my season goes this year, I might be going to Croatia with them. So fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yep.
That was a
Yep.
small thing to plug before we go off. That's
I
incredible.
mean, I might be asking you to help me get money for it.
Hey, yeah, yeah. What would that be for them? Let's have that conversation before we get out of here.
But what do you mean?
Going to overseas, what would the purpose of
Yeah.
that be? What would happen?
I mean, selfishly, it's to reconnect and just kind of see how God's working in other people's lives. Which I don't know if that would be selfish or not, but that's kind of why I want to do it and kind of reconnect with what led me to getting baptized in the first place, was going on mission. And I don't know a ton about it. I haven't been able to learn a lot yet, just because
Okay.
I don't even
Yeah.
know if I'm going to be able to go because
Yeah.
it's the same week as our regional tournament. So if
Oh,
that happens, then I can't go, which totally fine reason not to go. Like Loki would rather get to the regional NCAA championship or regionals than, you know.
I hear you.
But I think we go to a school in Croatia and we like connect with them and we just do some like work with them to kind of spread the word of God and see how it is in different parts of the world, because Western culture views religion very differently than other cultures.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what it would be.
Wow.
So, yeah. But
That's
it's like a
sweet.
$2,000 ticket. So I'm trying to figure out like how to raise the money if,
Yeah.
even if I like, and what happens if I can't go. So trying to figure all the logistics out, but who knows? If I go,
Well,
great. If I don't, that's okay too. But
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of the deal, right? Is we need to be adaptive and flexible and find our way to
yeah.
where we're being called to go. So
Yeah.
I
Well, and that's definitely one thing that the D2 level and the not like non D1 levels kind of allow is you have a little bit more freedom to
mm,
actually go and experience things like that,
sure, sure.
like study abroad and whatever. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Mm. Listen, I so appreciate you coming on. And I think, unless there's something else that you want to go and cover, I would love to do that. But I just feel like we've covered
Yeah.
many different things actually that haven't been covered on our show before. So I'm very fortunate for that. Couldn't have thought of a better way to kick off season number 2. And I'm just so thankful for you for making the time to,
Of
sit here
course.
and be with, and, thank you so much.
No, I'm really glad it worked out finally.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, you're doing good work and it's something that I support, and I think too it inspires me to do more of sharing
Mm,
the gospel.
mm,
So yeah.
absolutely. With that, thank you for tuning in to Confluence of Worlds, everybody, with Bryan Rector, as well as Emilia Bishop today. And I can promise you that you'll be seeing more of her as we move along. So that we could begin to build that bridge and make that work after, the first season, and hope you guys are enjoying and staying true to the word and to what we're taught to do and called to do. And have a great day, everybody.
Thanks guys. Have a good day.